We have a change coming up in the telecom industry. Probably many of the people listening in today are aware of it, but many of the traditional carriers that we've dealt with are getting out of the voice analog lines. Can you comment a little bit about this and what an organization needs to be aware of? Because it's certainly going to impact an organization. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're talking about analog services and POTS lines. You read a lot about how the major carriers are looking at getting out of that particular business probably by 2020 and going into the 21st century with predominantly like an IP and wireless play. We get it, we understand it. However, in my opinion, that one, there's carriers that are already getting out of that business, and LECs, local exchange carriers across the country. Not all of them, for sure. I don't believe that most of the LECs today have the luxury where they can just get out of the business because they have to provide support and service for the next several years. Some may disagree with me, but from what we've seen, we see that there's still going to be some service being supported. However, the messages are very strong with what the largest carriers are looking to do over the next 3 or 4 years. And it's already happening at some level. You've already seen sort of the mentality of how they go about existing customer services and new business. So there are solutions. We're very well equipped to work with our customers today, to talk to them about options. We're doing alternative options today. And a lot of our customers are really kind of dipping their toe and trying some of these rebuild options that are out there and are very happy. So without having to uproot these services or potentially go down a technology migration to SIP, perhaps, which is Session Initiation Protocol,
okay,
which is the big buzz that's out there. I believe that's probably where most enterprise customers will go over time, is go to that SIP technology, because we're handling quite a bit of that today. However, for the customers that want to have or retain the traditional POTS services, if you will, analog services, there are some really good options on the rebuild.
Kurt, many of the traditional carriers are getting out of the analog voice business in the next 2 to 4 years. I'd like you to comment about what this change is going to be. And then Stephanie, I'd like you to chime in on it as well, because what does this mean to a government CIO, a telecom manager? There's certain government organizations that still rely on analog service to inform their citizens about things. So Kurt, could you comment on the change that's happening in our industry in the next 2 to 4 years?
Sure. We see that the goal is by 2020, going into the 21st century, that a lot of the major carriers are looking to be much more of an IP and wireless play. We're seeing that there's a lot of voice services that are being turned down as we speak today, which means it's going to create all kinds of new competition, which we see, which is always good. And with all the LECs across the country, not every LEC has the luxury to just turn off these services. And from my opinion is they're probably going to be there to continue to support and service quite a bit of those customers for the next several years. That being said, I think that if you are reliant heavily on the POTS and analog services, there's plenty of messages out there to start looking at other alternative options. And that is what we've been really good at, is presenting to our customers of several different options that are out there. One is probably the least intrusive, is a rebuild options, which is a lot of new competition coming in the market. Some do it very well, some not so well. But we've had a lot of success around migrating customers just from a pure billing perspective, and it's allowed us to take other carrier services and actually run it under those rebillers and create a single invoice, which has been nice. That's been very successful. When we look at other options, it really comes down to technology options. Most of the conversations we're having today are customers looking to migrate to SIP, which is a Session Initiation Protocol. And that needs some strategy behind it, but we're seeing and having more of those conversations today than most. And we also see, based on the capabilities, there's fiber that becomes a really big opportunity based on the way a customer's business is set up.
So you almost have, for anyone out there listening in today, you have two scenarios coming up. Scenario one is you invest in a newer technology. Scenario two is you're going to have these new analog carriers that you're going to have to go and negotiate with. So, Stephanie, you've led several large public sector organizations from both from a security and technology standpoint. What, as someone listening in today that manages a large organization that's heavily reliant on either a public exchange or analog lines in their service to the citizen, what advice would you have for them?
I would reiterate basically what Kurt said, Jimmy. You have to have a strategy in place, you have to plan it, and most importantly, you have to think security. Government went in the last several years to a lot of voice over IP projects. Some of them were successful, some of them weren't. The ones that were successful were well planned, strategized. It included your security team. It included your legal team to discuss privacy issues, the way that those things needed to be secured for the implementation. So again, security is very critical with the strategy discussions happening.